Hi, I'm Philip from the HANA Academy. In this series of videos, we're looking at the XS Advanced model, which was introduced with SPS 11 of HANA. In this video, we're going to set up the connection between our client, where we have the XS command we previously installed, and our controller on the HANA runtime on the server, basically. So in order to do that, the first thing is just to make sure we know which server we're going to connect to. You can take a browser. You can always use the XS Classic URL. That will give you your server name, and in this case, the default port 8000. So it's instance 00 that we're using. Of course, your instance and of course your server name will be different. And what you can also do as a test is you can put in an HTTPS, and at the end we can change it to use a port which will be 3 followed by your instance number, so 0030, and then basically v2 and info, v2/info, and if you put that in, what you should do is get some JSON back. Basically, this is saying that you've been able to connect to the XS Advanced controller correctly. So it means you basically got the right target. So that could be quite useful just to make sure it exists before you try it within the API command. So for the API command, what I'm going to do is open up Explorer, and I'll shift right mouse button on a folder so I can open a command window. So we're going to do the XS API. Let's just check that we've got XS up and running. If not, then check some of the previous videos. We can see we're on version 109, which is the initial SPS 11 version of this XS command line interface. What we're going to use is the XS API command. Now, if you just put it in, it will basically tell you that it doesn't have a setting. If you have run it before, it will tell you where you're connecting to. So what we're going to do is take that command, and we're going to put it in so that it will point to our server. So I'm going to put in HTTPS, and then the name of my server. And remember, its port number is 3, and then 00 in my case is the instance number. If you have a different instance number, you'll need to put it in there, and then 30 at the end. And now if we hit enter, it shouldn't be able to make that connection we've established with the servers up and running. But noticed it says it's failed because you've got a secure sockets layer. Basically, it's missing a certificate. It's not trusted. So what we need to do is basically set up a certificate on our client so that it can connect securely to the server. Now, there is a back door to this. If you want, you can also cheat. There is, in fact, an option which allows you to avoid doing this authentication in this way with a certificate. You can basically use skip and then -SSL validation, and it will allow you to connect, but without actually having a certificate. However, that's not really secure. It's maybe something you might try for 5 or 10 minutes as a first test, but the correct way is that you should have a copy of the appropriate certificate locally and use that as you do your authentication. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can get hold of that certificate. You do need access to the HANA server to be able to do this, or an administrator to give you the certificate that's actually already on the HANA server. So what I'm going to do is open up a quick putty session against the server machine, and I'll just sudo, so I've got the rights to see the folder. Now, typically the default installation for HANA and the XSA runtime part would be in HANA shared, so we can just try that. Of course, if that doesn't work for you, or you talk to your system administrator that did the install, then they'll be able to tell you where that is. There should normally be an HDB folder within there. Let's have a look. Yep. And at the end, you'll see that we've got an XS folder. That means that the runtime is there, so we can go into the XS folder. And then we'll see there's a number of folders. The one we want to go for is called controller_data. So I'm going to go to controller_data. And then within that, we'll see some other folders. We need to go to the folder called controller. And then within that, we'll find there's a folder called SSL-pub. So I'll go in there. And then within there, there should be a folder called router. So let's go to that one. And in there, we now find there's a file there, PEM file, which is our certificate. So it's this file that we need to basically get locally. So of course you can ask your administrator, now you know basically by default where it might be stored. You can ask your administrator if you're not able to go and grab it yourself. But what I'm going to do is just copy that file. So let's just select it so we get the correct name. I'm going to copy that file, and I'm going to put it in a folder that I can easily do an FTP, for example, from that server. So I've got to use a HANA folder lying around. So it's now been copied over. So what I could then do is connect, for example, using FileZilla, and go to that folder and be able to copy over, assuming that you've got the rights in order to do that. But be careful with this file because obviously it's a very sensitive and secure file. But let me just make my connection. I'll go to user HANA. There's that file. I'm now going to basically copy that over, and it's up to you where you want to put it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put it into our XS folder on the C drive. So let's just scroll down till we get to our XS client folder. So I'll just drag and drop it so it's copied over. Okay, I've now done that. I can now exit out of my putty session. Should not need that anymore. And what I should then be able to do here now is use a specific option, and the option basically is called -CA cert for certificate, and then I need to point to the location and the name of the certificate. So that would be, let's just check that we've got it locally in Explorer. Go to C and then the XS client, there's our file. So what we can do is at least just check that that's the thing we're going to do. So let's copy and paste that, and it's default.root.crt.pem. So let's just paste that in, and then it was default.root.crt.pem. And now this time, when he makes the connection, it should all work very nicely. So we can see we've now got an endpoint. In fact, we just do an XS API. That's remembered. It's remembered even when you reboot the system. So you've basically set that up. You don't have to do that each time, as long as you've got the certificate, of course, and the certificate remains valid. Now, if you want to see more detail on what we've just done in that process, that's where you can go to the note that we mentioned in previously. So 2242468. And in that note, it gives you information about how you do the install, but it also gives you this information about running the API command, the CA cert option, for example, and actually how you actually go out and find the information you need and get that certificate file. So that's more information on if you want more background on the instructions for what we just did in this and the previous video. In the next video, what we're going to do is actually try to log in and start working with the connection that we've just made.